If you knew your chances of crashing were 50%, would you get on a plane and fly? In the United States, 40 to 50% of first marriages end in divorce. And if you get married twice, your chances go up to 67%. The disaster of broken families is at the root of nearly all the societal problems in Western countries, and in particular the United States. Fortunately, there are solutions. And in this video, I'm going to share some of my observations about dating women in Latin America. The truth is, giving yourself an international lifestyle just isn't that tough, and it makes more sense now than ever before. International diversification is freedom insurance. If you want to know how I've done it for my family and how you can do it for yours for a lot less than you think, please subscribe, like, comment, and share with folks you care about. Here's the problem. First off, women have a tough role to play. For women, life happens to them. She doesn't do anything to become a woman. One day, the blood begins to flow, and suddenly she's a woman. She didn't do anything to accomplish that feat. It just happened naturally. Now, the burdens of menstruation and gestation and lactation are all deeply unfair to women in a biological sense. But that's just the way it is. And I see men, especially in Western countries, especially in the US, tacitly apologizing for this. And it's the surest way ever to get no attention from women. Ever. Whether or not women accept the reality of their situation or not is the very definition of being a good woman. The best women accept this and the worst women reject it, and they will find innumerable ways to make your life miserable because of this perceived unfairness. It's very easy to avoid such women, but it doesn't solve the problem of women that you want to date. The worst ones milk their disadvantage for all it's worth, and the best women accept it and struggle admirably, which is partly why we admire them. This is, in my mind, the core disease and the problem that has to be faced and solved. It's the core root problem of the appalling male-female dynamics in North America and in the woke West in general. Here I'm talking about Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. Not that I've dated women from all these places, but you take my meaning, right? The cultural attitudes are the same. In Latin America, it's very different. You don't find this dynamic. I know this because in my days as a bachelor and before I got married, I did some deep field work on this topic. Today in the woke West, there really isn't a lot of hope, and I'll tell you why. Women are biologically collectivist. They all endure the same trials of biology, and they all tend to empathize and commiserate over it. And they have a bond that links them. It causes a kind of collective mindset because they share this experience. This is partly why, for all of human history, every culture in every country that we know of, all throughout history, has provided guardrails to prevent women from acting too crazy about their plight and, let's be honest, rebelling. We need women. They play a super important role. Everybody got here the same way. And so it's why the proper sort of attitude of respect toward mothers and all the rest is also deeply ingrained in absolutely every society on earth. It's also why society offers tons of concessions to women and so much comfort and support and protection. This too is hardwired into the way that men think about women, and you should feel protective of women. But in the woke West, there's no recognition or no reward for this, or at least very little. It's actually perceived as a kind of weakness on your part. If you're too considerate of women or you genuinely have protective kind of instincts, you very often get sort of downgraded for this, and it makes for an absolutely impossible situation. In the modern West, there's also a notion that women can't do anything wrong. No matter how bad their behavior, they get excused for it. They're essentially above reproach. And the net effect of that is that this kills all the delightful cat and mouse that makes dating women so delicious. Think about this. If a man uses violence against a woman, that's a clear crime, and there are punishments encoded and enshrined in law and handed down by the state. This is not true in every country, but it is true in the places where people are most likely to see this video. But if a woman, for example, uses to manipulate or destroy a family either through adultery or just by making life unbearable for her husband, she's consoled and shown consideration because, well, she needed love, her husband must have been a bad guy. There's no penalties for women's bad behavior, and in fact, according to one study, in relationships with non-reciprocal violence, women are the aggressors 70% of the time. So violence is the greatest crime really that a man can commit against a woman. All women feel this. It's why they collectively reject men who are violent, right? Any guy who's like a violent rapist is abhorred at a sort of blood and bone marrow level by women, because women are very, very prone to and very susceptible to being victims of violence. But when women initiate violence, where do you see any outrage or denunciation? It doesn't exist. If a woman uses as a tool of leverage to make home life impossible or to seduce or undermine her man or to destroy a peaceful family life. No one says anything and there's no penalty imposed. This is life in the progressive woke West. Not so in Latin America. So I ask you once again, would you get on a plane where the chances of dying in a fiery plane crash were a coin toss and where the most likely cause of the crash is the person that you married? And more importantly, in this video, is there any solution? Well, there is no foolproof solution to avoiding a disastrous outcome with women. Obviously, you cannot make blanket statements. So I'm not making a blanket statement about all women everywhere or all women in one given culture, but we can recognize some best practices. And more importantly, I can give you some tips and tools about how to do well, especially if you're going to date women in Latin America. First of all, if you have a rotten barrel of apples, you get one off the tree. So Latina women are still brought up in a culture where the mind virus of equality, where women are free to do whatever they damn well please, just doesn't play. The collectivist motif is one of family and togetherness, not one-upsmanship and rebellion based on a Marxist narrative about oppression and exploitation. Now, this video is not about how to get women in bed, Latinas included, but the fact is, even if you're not a good-looking guy, it's not hard to get women in bed. But there are always consequences to taking a woman to bed, and that's not something I'm necessarily trying to cover here. But I do want to tell you about some of my experiences with Latinas before I was married. In Cuba, I recall a lovely time with a woman who told me straight out, when I asked her out, once she knew that I fancied her, that she was devoted to the church. Now, you might think, how boring, right? But actually, it was really lovely. We had a beautiful time together. I took her dancing. We walked around Havana. She showed me a ton of interesting things that I wouldn't have otherwise discovered. She was a real-life Guantanamera from Guantanamo, just like the song. Life in Havana was really rough then. This was 1998, but in meeting her and spending a few weeks with her, it made my trip to Cuba just incredibly rich. In Colombia, I met a stunning little number at a medical conference where I spoke, and again, we danced, and she showed me around the town. In Buenos Aires, I was actually propositioned by a young woman to come home with her, a woman I met dancing, and I told her no thanks and went home to sleep. A few days later, we met again, and I went out with her for a couple of days or a couple of weeks while I was there for all the usual reasons. And I got to learn a ton about the city and what life is like in Argentina. And I got to further my Spanish. I do love the Argentine pronunciation, I really do. I could go on, okay? Many such cases. But what I want you to notice are there are a few common denominators in all my interactions with Latina women in Latin America, some of them obvious and some of them less so. So first of all, this is aimed at young men. I tell this to all young men, any chance I get, learn to dance. There is no other single skill that you can learn that will solve your probably lack of dating habits with beautiful women other than knowing how to dance. Why more guys don't get this and sort of take me up on this proposition is a mystery to me. And I'm talking about partner dancing, like swing dance, Latin dances like salsa and merengue and bachata, and the king of all dances, tango. If you know how to dance, your days of being an awkward dork with women are over, and your days of being alone will be over as well. Second, learn to speak Spanish. Go somewhere and you refuse to speak English to all the other dopey tourists, and you surround yourself with local people and make friends. You cannot fail. This takes roughly 6 months to get really fluent, give or take. You should give yourself at least that long, probably a little longer, but not just trying to speak with people. Sit down with a dictionary for 15 minutes a day and read something. People make out like it's so difficult to learn another language because we're so catered to as English speakers. It's a big mistake. Sit down, read something, look up a few words. I guarantee you're going to hear those words in conversation later in the day. It's just how it works. You're going to notice things. Your brain keys into the things that you've already made yourself familiar with, and you'll recognize more and more of the words being spoken around you in the conversation. You can take part in it. If you make the slightest effort to speak with somebody in Latin America, in Spanish, they will more than meet you halfway, which means every person and every conversation becomes your tutor. Now, those are the obvious skills, let's say. The less obvious skills are actually advantages that you already have just by going to Latin America. First of all, you're automatically considered interesting until you prove otherwise. To be interesting is pretty simple. Be interested in other people and get interested in her hometown. She'd be happy to show you around, I promise you. Another easy way to be interesting is to read books. If you read something that interests you, you're already in the top 1% of educated people. And I don't mean educated in an academic sense. There's a lot of dumb people in academia. I mean you're educated in a way that's useful, that's practical, that actually has application, right? Read things that interest you. You can learn so much, and when you do, you have interesting things on your mind, which makes it easy to make conversation. It also forces you to express yourself about what you're reading. No woman can resist resist this. And let's be honest, if she's too dumb to care about interesting conversation, well, you have your answer and it's easy to move on. Remember, just by being in Latin America, if you're a dude from an English-speaking country, you're already an anomaly. Simply by your decision to be in another country. To be in her country means that there's something interesting about you. People want to know people from other places, and if you've made the effort to go to a Latin American country, you're not going to have a lot of problem finding people interested as to why you're there, what you're doing, what you think about this, that, the other thing, where you live, right, where you come from, etc. There's no difficulty finding people who want to know about you, and many of those people, I promise, will be female. When you go to Latin America, you're a curiosity because you're from somewhere else. And if the somewhere else you come from, especially, is North America, you come from a place that most women in Latin America won't have a lot of firsthand knowledge of, but they will have a certain mental image of, and that's an advantage to you. There's no question about it. It means that you have a lot of interesting things to share right off the bat. Now, women everywhere long for this in men. They won't often meet men who have made an effort to come to them and who has interesting things to say and to share. If you show any interest in her and her hometown or where she's from, etc., you go up a few more notches in her eyes. To be honest, these are all the advantages you need when dealing with Latinas and women in Latin America, and all of this is pretty standard stuff for dating women anywhere you go. But the most important point is that women in Latin America don't have the same disagreeableness that you find in North American women. They're also not afflicted with what young people now refer to as hoflation, where the expectation is an expensive dinner in exchange for pussy. That means you're holding all the best cards. Getting her into bed can wait. You can wait because you always have more options and more opportunities than she does. To me, the best thing about Latinas is they don't come from a culture where the notion of dog-eat-dog competition with men even exists. Women in Latin America grasp and accept that it's okay to be female. They know it's hard and they tend to complain less. They are, at least when you first meet them and take them out, less apt to manipulate and maneuver to undermine your life. That could all change, of course, but my point is the attitude, the underlying cultural disposition and thought process that women grow up with in the home, in society, around them, does not reinforce bad attitude about here's how we're going to get even with men, which is just rampant today in North America. And I'm not saying all women in North America, so don't send me angry comments. Women in Latin America expect, and by their expectation, encourage men to act like men. If you go to a tango salon in Buenos Aires at 3 a.m., look on the dance floor and tell me that this isn't true. These are not really controversial views to say out loud, even though I'll probably get a raft of angry comments. There's no denying the facts that, number one, women in North America live the most pampered, most privileged lives of any women in history, and the result is bitter rivalry about how it's still not fair. And then number two, women in Latin America, and in other parts of the world as well, don't have the same conditioning or history of bullshit ideology that stokes disrespect and disapproval for you acting like a man. That should be very refreshing to you. This greatly increases the polarity that's at the very heart of what makes it so delightful to chase and date and fall in love with women in the first place. So go to Latin America. If you want to enjoy women the way men used to enjoy women everywhere, you won't regret it, I promise. Now, if you're interested in this topic and you enjoy these kind of videos, then please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to join a private community of people who are creating a decentralized future, a situation where individuals with similar values banding together to join forces and create community going forward into the 2020s as we watch the chaos of the world play out. The best thing you can have going for you right now is good community. And so we've done that. I call it the X-Plan community. The X in the equation is you. This is about your specific situation. This is about your unique needs. This is about you and your family making it through the coming chaos in style. And so if you're interested in that, you can click the link below this video and find out more details. Right now, you can join the X-Plan community for just $1. Click below to get all the details. Instead of passively obeying the lunatic decisions by cognitively impaired political hacks, we're building a future where international diversification ensures our freedom and prosperity. You'll get easy access to resources and contacts to help you structure your own international lifestyle, including how you protect your money outside the U.S. banking system, how to quickly get legal documents that allow you and your family to enter a friendly, welcoming, peaceful jurisdiction when trouble hits North America, where to invest in top-tier income-producing real estate, and much, much more. If you decide you want the convenience of private consulting, we offer that option too, but at a tiny fraction of what other so-called experts are charging. So you don't have to break the bank trying to protect your family and preserve your wealth in the chaos of the 2020s. Click below to get all the details and join the X-Plan community for just $1, and I'll see you on the inside. That's it. Thanks very much. If you enjoy it, please subscribe below, and I'll talk to you again in another video.